Well, let's move on. We've got one more segment to cover today, and we're talking trades now. Again, we get a lot of comments on our YouTube channel, and we love the comments. Keep them coming, by the way. We try to get to as many as possible, and if we don't, I apologize. We're just trying to sift through all of these guys. But I wanted to address a few particular type of comments that we do get, and I'm not going to name the people who ask these questions, but I've just got a couple of examples here. So the first example is, should I trade Jeremy Grant, Drew Holiday, Chris Boucher for Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, and Mikal Bridges or Tyrese Halliburton? Now, the problem with this kind of question, and it makes it difficult for us to answer, is the fact that, number one, I don't know what the rest of your team looks like. I don't know what your punt strategy is. I don't know if you're in a category or a points league. I'm not sure what the rest of the league is looking like. I don't know how many players are in your league, what your waiver wire is looking like. There's a lot of factors involved there when you're talking about multiple players in a deal that have completely different skill sets. In that example, you're giving up a lot of blocks, you're giving up a lot of steals, you're giving up a lot of field goal percentage, but you're gaining heaps of points, heaps of threes, heaps of steals and assists. So it's a complete statistical swap. So a really hard question to answer without knowing your team. Another common question is, who would you rather have in a points league, player X or player Y? In this example, it's Capella or Toby Harris. Look, without knowing your scoring settings in a point system, it's really hard to give you the answer. And in points leagues, it's pretty much just who do you think is going to score the most, really, is the simplistic answer. There's not too much stock you should put into positional differences and things like that. So again, based on your settings, that could be different. So another tough one for us to answer. But we're going to go and talk about just some general tips on how you can approach trading to best suit your team and give you the best results. Any comments on those sort of general questions that we've been getting on YouTube, Cal?
I think you summed it up well. It is hard when you don't know what team they have, because you and I are both pretty keen on punting, and I guess we'll talk on that a bit further. But I'll jump in and I'll say what my first tip, and this in terms of right now in the regular season or throughout the whole season itself, is really just to know what other people are punting, and you can do that pretty easily just by if you're looking, say you made a short list of say 5 players you'd look to trade, player X for. You can look at the specific teams that they're on. You could even look at the previous week if you're doing a weekly thing. And you could just say, hey, look, he won in these categories, he stunk. How can I try and make this work for him? And if you can both, persuade an argument that's like, oh, this works for you, it works for me, it's a win-win. I'm putting this, you're putting that, put X, Y, you get Z, beautiful. So that's one way to do it, is just to know your league, know what you're punting, know what other players are punting, and that's only going to work to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I think punting is something that, yes, you should have considered at your draft, but it's also something that even if you didn't lock into a punt in your draft, it's not too late to either make a pivot or consolidate or take advantage of other people's punts as well. So a good tool that I like to use is, and again, we play on Yahoo. I'm not sure if ESPN has this, but on Yahoo, you can go under the league tab and there's a section called team stats. And on there, it'll give you all the sort of results as well as totals in terms of what teams have done in certain categories. So for example, if I look at our team stats at the moment, Callum, you're doing pretty well at the moment. You've never lost in field goal percentage, points, rebounds, and assists. So you're doing well there. Never lost. But you've also never won in blocks and turnovers. So from that, I can surmise that you are punting blocks and turnovers.
Just like that.
Just like that, I sort of can read your team and sort of get a gauge on where you're at. So I can now sort of, if you've got a player who has some good blocks and I'm looking for blocks, you might not value them as highly as I might value them, and I can get some good results from a trade in that scenario there. So that's an excellent point, I think, from you there, Cal.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, what's your number tip from you?
The tip from me is again a little bit compared to similar to yours in terms of punting, but more on a general term in terms of know what categories you need to win. You might be doing really well in a certain category, so there's no point in you making that category even stronger. What you need to be doing is determining if your category is so good that you don't need to worry about it, or it's so bad that it's not worth trying to improve it because you're just going to get to average. you want to be trying to consolidate those categories where you're close to other teams in. So again, that league tab, team stats is a good thing to do. So if you are middle of the road in assists and rebounds, well, maybe those are the kind of stats you should be looking to elevate. Another thing that I like to do is, on a week-to-week basis, look at your matchups, not only between you and the person you're versing that week, but also the stats that you have compared to everyone else in the league, and sort of compare yourself. Oh, would I have beaten team X or team Y or team W? Which categories would I have lost and won? And then you can sort of start to track which categories are your strongest point against certain teams and which ones are the ones that are sort of really close. And on one week you might have won, one week you might have lost. So if you can get better in those stats, then that's where you're going to be sort of coming out on top consistently. So look to bolster those 50-50 stats.
I'll jump in. I'll say my next tip is kind of focusing on the punt. And I feel like right now is the perfect time to do it. When you're in right now, 3 weeks in, right? Or is this week 4 technically now? So
we've gone through 4 weeks. This is week 5. The first week was shorter. Okay. Yeah,
that's right. So I feel like right now is the perfect time. Is you know what your punt is, just because so many players do have question marks before the season. At this point, you pretty much know what your team is. There's been times, a good example is when I actually went into a draft and I started to be punting field goal. I had Dame Lillard and Paul George as my first 2 picks one season. And then after the first 2 weeks, I just had no blocking stats. I thought, say, like a Marcus would put up more. He wasn't. I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of the players on my team that put up punts, and that's why I put up that category I'm obviously not doing too well in, and then just totally tank it. And so I instantly traded. Marcus had a good season that season. I traded him for Vucevic straight away. Not a dude good on blocks, went full punt. And you know what? Guess what? I won that season. It was a great year for me.
Good flex.
It's just things like that. It's like right now is like the perfect time. You know exactly what your team is. If you weren't too sure at the draft, which is fine. Sometimes you just get the best player that's there. That's totally fine to that on draft day. But now you know exactly what it is, and you can start really reaching for assets that fit that build and get rid of players that, say, a category you're losing, 3 of the 4 weeks. You get rid of him, and then just bring in a better asset for the, stack another category.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. You could even go the other way. So say, for example, I'll use my team this year as an example. Like I set out to punt blocks this year. However, just as a sort of a late round flyer, I drafted a player like Chris Boucher, who's playing really, really well and putting up extreme block numbers. Block numbers so good, in fact, that I could actually start to, if I made a trade to get another player who is an elite shot blocker, I can actually turn that into a category of strength. I've got a player like Jaren Jackson Jr. coming back. So there's 2 players, and blocks and blocks mostly is the category that it only takes a couple of players to really make yourself strong in that category. So if it is a stat like that, you can sort of make that turn and switch to sort of elevate yourself in a category like that. And sometimes players, like a Brook Lopez, they may only really be good at blocks, but that could be really valuable for your team. And if their ranking is down low and people are fed up by Brook Lopez not scoring many points or rebounding because he's a center and they want him to rebound, then you can sort of float some low ball offers and get some good value there. So yeah, a big theme of our sort of advice so far is getting a good handle on that punt and really knowing your team and knowing the league's team as well. So I think that's good advice. Again, I'll give one more shout out. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. We talk a lot of fantasy and NBA all the time, giving out lots of advice, talking a lot of smack talk. We answer lots of questions on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want some more up-to-date knowledge and facts about fantasy, follow us on Twitter at Ball Boys NBA. We'll chuck the link down in the description there. But if you can follow us over there, that would be awesome. All right, let's go on to, I've got another sort of advice here. And it sounds simple because we put out videos about it, but you need to buy low and sell high. And specifically, do not sell players low. Don't panic. Which, look, it sounds easy, but it can be hard to do because the emotions come into it. Like I've got a player on my team, like Pascal Siakam. He's not performed to standard so far. I had high expectations of him, and he has not done what I wanted him. But the worst thing I could do for right now is try and trade Pascal Siakam, because his value is as low as it's going to be for the season. So I'm going to get a worse return than if I just wait, be patient, and hope that things get better. And then if I still want to trade him later on, then the value might be there. I might be able to get a fair trade. Have you seen this one a fair bit, Cal? I know I've almost been victim to it in the past.
Oh, look, I've got a great example for you right now. Let's say the 238th ranked player right now in.
Yeah. Who is it?
Actually, well, there's two different rankings. So, look, either way, he's terrible. Right now, it's Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
And it's because he hurts you so much. So far in the season, his field goals 38%, 5 turnovers. His free throws is terrible too. He's shooting 5 a game and only shooting about 66%. So because he's hurting in those 3 categories so much, it's so easy to maybe convince some guy, hey, I'll take him off your hands. He's hurting you more than he's really assisting you. And that could really be like a buy low. Assuming he picks it up. Obviously, right now he's out injured too, which I guess builds into the argument of some guy could be super low on Russell right now. They could just give him up for a player that could be like a mid round value.
I guarantee you, if you floated a low ball offer to a Russell Westbrook owner, you would have a good chance of getting him off your team, because they'd be so fed up with him. But now that 238 ranked that's a total cumulative rank for the season, and that's because that for some reason these Washington Wizards just COVID ridden in their locker rooms, and they're just getting games postponed after postponed after postponed. So he is not playing any games, and I'm sure the owner is super frustrated. And look, he's sitting back-to-backs anyway. So the worst thing you could do as a Westbrook owner is trade him now. And look, if an owner thinks that he's still a top 20 player and is willing to trade top 20 value, yes, make the trade, of course. But typically, that's not going to be the case. You're probably not going to be able to get that kind of value back. But the best advice that we can give is just be patient on those players that have not performed up to expectations so far, and trade when their value returns. Conversely, don't buy high on the players who are outperforming their expectations. Players like CJ McCollum, who, a bad example, he's injured right now, but Jaylen Brown is another one that comes to mind. Miles Turner, who's blocking over 4 shots a game. That's not sustainable. Make sure that you're not paying too much. These things will come down, and then you'll be able to get a fair price rather than trying to buy them at their peak, because you just have to have them, and they've been so good. Patience is very important. Like, I know it feels like we're deep into the season, it's a shorter season, but it is only week 5. So there is still time for things to spread out and even out.
Right. Well, I'll jump into some trade examples.
Yeah, hit me with some examples.
And we'll use some of these amazing tips that we just told you to really just apply it. So we'll go back to that Russell Westbrook one. What if I offered you John Wall for Russell Westbrook? Right now, John Wall, he's putting up pretty good numbers. He's outperformed himself, I guess, with expectations. He put up about 18, 5 and 5, 1.3 steals, 1 block as well, while pretty efficient from the field. He is injured right now, I'll say that, but it's like a sore left knee.
It's not a long-term
You'd like to think
injury.
he's coming back.
Yeah.
But if I offered you that trade, what would you say?
Again, look, it would depend on like we said before, it depends on your team. If I'm a team that I drafted Westbrook stupidly, might I add, and I'm trying to look after my percentages and my turnovers, then yeah, I probably would want John Wall. He's going to be a better player, and he's going to provide value in those areas, and field goal, free throws, turnovers. He's going to be a better player in terms of an overall ranking. He probably will be better than that. But, if you've got Russell Westbrook, chances are either you went into the draft expecting to punt both or one of the percentages, or you now have Russell Westbrook and now you are punting free throws and field goal percentage. If I actually go on to, and a good tool that we use, and shout out to Josh Lloyd, who's the fantasy guru that we followed for a little while. He's got a website, Basketball Monster, that I like to use, and you can actually turn on the punts to value a player in how they are. If I punt field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers, guess how high Russell Westbrook ranks? He is the 11th ranked player in that kind of build. So if I'm punting those categories, which I am in my Dynasty League, there is no way that I'm trading Westbrook for John Wall, because he is a first-round player in that build. So it's that kind of example where it's two different teams can give you a completely different result. So, are you surprised to learn that he's the 11th ranked player with those punts?
It's pretty high, but look, when you look at he always puts such good counting stats and points, assists, and rebounds. So it's not overwhelming. He usually puts up the reasonable steals as well. And this season, he is shooting the three. He doesn't have D'Antoni whispering in his ear to just go to the rim. He's got a bit more freedom to hit that mid range and hit that. It's probably why his field goal has dropped so much. But
Look, and his field goal will increase. His free throw may be this bad. His turnovers are probably this bad as well. But I guarantee you his field goal percentage will go up. It's not going to be that low. He's never been that low for his entire career. So when that comes up, the points are going to come up as well. And the threes are probably going to come up as well. So he's definitely going to be a better player than he is right now. But of course, we do know that Russell Westbrook hurts you in the percentages. So the other, speaking of that, I do want to touch on last thing talking about general sort of stuff is that what to look for in terms of what makes a player a buy low and a sell high, in terms of what is sustainable and what is like a genuine breakout and a genuine drop off. There are a few things to look out for, in my opinion. The biggest thing, and usually the most obvious thing, is the percentages. If a player is just going out there and just putting up godly numbers on a huge percentage because they're just getting hot and they're shooting the lights out, their 3-point percentage, their field goal percentage is through the roof, chances are that's not going to sustain. I can think of a few examples. I can't quite think of a few examples off the top of my head, but that is one thing to be thinking about. Cat's just going crazy in the background. And the other thing is inflated steal or block numbers. Now, I highlight these ones in particular because they're low volume stats. 5 steals is a huge number, and especially in a smaller sample size to start the season. If you have someone who's averaging a huge amount of steals or blocks, it's going to seriously inflate your value. And we highlight Miles Turner as a sell high because I guarantee he's not going to average 4 blocks for the entire season. He's come out to a hot start, blocking a lot of shots. He will be a high shot blocker, but if you just go from 4 blocks to 2.5, which is still elite, that's a huge loss in value. So I'll be looking at for those type of things to determine if someone's a sell high or a buy low.
Well, you got one more thing you're missing. I think opportunity.
Yeah.
There can be these trades that have just happened. And some people might be like, oh, look, the ceiling for this guy could be so much higher. And there's a bit of ambiguity. There's a bit of that gambling, spin the dice on this certain player that can make a sell high or even a buy low player. So, for example, DeAndre Jordan right now, obviously just got elevated to the starting center role for Brooklyn. He'll get minutes. There's no Jared Allen whispering in his ear anymore. It could be signs of, say, like a flashback to not quite the Clippers, but let's say Dallas Mavericks, where he put up 11 points, close to 14 rebounds, and then that 1.5 kind of blocks a game. That's very elite in those areas. His field goal as well, huge at 64% field goal on 6.5 attempts, massive field goal. So in those categories there, big bump, obviously doesn't hurt you in turnovers. The one thing is, yes, the free throws do hurt you. You have to consider that he will go up in terms of attempted, and he's never been able to hit them. So if I'd say, look, DeAndre Jordan right now as a buy high, if I offered you, say, like a Clint Capella, would you be open to something like that?
I wouldn't be doing. Those are two quite similar players. In that example, I think DeAndre Jordan is just a bit. If I just look at him as a player, I think he's a bit over the hill, and I think that he's just basically on the downturn of his career. Yes, his rebound numbers could be good. His field goal percentage will probably be good, but the usage is going to be so low with the team of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and
he'll be dunking though. James Harden will be feeding him a lot of lobs, man. Like he'll get the field goal will be back up there, and to get the 10 points, you only have to have 5 dunks. And when he's on the court with James Harden, he'll get a few of those a game, and the other dunks he gets are usually this grabs a rebound and dunks it. So
I think he's definitely rosterable. I think he's definitely going to be better than he has been, 100%. But for Clint Capella is a good player, and he's a better shot blocker and a better point scorer than DeAndre at this stage. So I
what about DeAndre for Lonzo Ball? I'll throw that one at you. I know you have Lonzo on your team.
I do have Lonzo. Again, it's a completely different build, and I think that one's giving you assists, steals, threes, the other's giving you field goal percentage, rebounds, and some blocks there. So look, if you don't need one of those categories, then the other person's probably going to be really good. So again, their ranking may be similar or completely different, but to your team, it might be a different story. So always factor in your team first.
Like I'd say I do it. I don't like Lonzo. Sorry,
Oh,
I'll hate on
right.
your players anytime I can. But yeah, look, you're right. They're two completely different builds. They are
Yeah.
two different builds,
Yeah.
100%.
And look, in my build, if I was to again, go basketballmonster.com and switch off field goal percentage, Lonzo Ball, he is nearly a top 60 player. Like he elevated significantly in a build like in my team. So your valuation may be correct for your build. My valuation can be completely incorrect for your build, but fine for mine. So just be aware of that. And that's when you can make steals in your trades. When you go to make them and things like that. Conversely, someone like a Devontae Graham or a Terry Rozier, who may eventually see the way to LaMelo Ball starting and gaining more minutes, their minutes might drop. You could see them as a bit of a sell high, because they're playing well, they're doing a good job now, but potentially there's that threat of someone coming in and taking their minutes down the line. So that sort of roster or threat of someone still in the minutes is something you do need to take into account. Similarly, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker's coming back into the team now. Some shots are going to go his way. His usage is going to go down. So here's an example of why that's a sell high at the moment. So,
well, what about let's look at Victor Oladipo as a bit of a sell high. Just got traded once again, so opportunities there. He's not sharing the ball with Brogdon, Sabonis anymore. This is pretty much him and John Wall will be running the court. John Wall will rest games. He had his first game with them today and put up some really good numbers. What was it? It was 32, 5, 9, 2 steals. Really good, 56% from the field. 7 turnovers. Yeah, look, his usage is going to be up. So his turnovers will be there. But he definitely is a player that he's obviously not quite back to his all-star that he was. But I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity where in a week to week kind of thing, he could definitely have some pretty good value for a team. So definitely could be a sell high for someone, or you could just keep him and run it out a bit. But if you want to sell high right now, he's ranked 43rd. So let's say if you want to try and sell high for, say, maybe you like look at Shea. He's actually 44. He's a similar ranked player.
Yep.
Maybe even say like a Gordon Hayward, who put up that good kind of points, rebounds, assist numbers. He's ranked 28th right now. Maybe you could try and persuade someone to make that trade, depending on obviously the punts once again.
Yeah, for sure. I think the overall message here is that ranks are fine. You can use them, and sometimes you would even use them in your argument to trade someone, a player. Oh, look, I'm giving you a higher ranked player, but they're almost irrelevant when you start to consider punting and your builds and things like that. So they're fine as a bit of a guide, but don't get married too much to the ranks, because in that example, I would definitely take Shea over a Victor Oladipo or a Gordon Hayward over Victor Oladipo at that stage, because I just think that what they're providing is harder to find and probably more sustainable. They're not doing it on Oladipo's. There's a bit of murkiness there in terms of his role. Houston might be looking to make some more trades down the line, so a little bit less clarity. I think Shea's opportunity, and like I see, he's just going to grow and grow as the season goes along. So, so a little bit to think about there. We've talked a lot about our trades, so hopefully that can give you some good value. So that'll do us for today, guys. Thanks for joining us, Cal. You're obviously doing well in fantasy, so we'll all do well to heed your advice and listen to what you have to say.
That's it. Look, I'll just we'll touch on it briefly, but I've got 4 players in the top 16 right now, killing it. I did draft the Joker. I've got who else do I have? Malcolm Brogdon is a top 16 player right now.
Yeah, mate.
I've got Paul George, I think he's ranked about 12. And then who's my last player in the top 16? It's hard to
remember.
It's hard to remember. Is it Sabonis? That's right. It's Vucevic, my other
Vucevic.
center. He's actually a top 10 player right now. So
killing it. Yeah. Conversely, me on the other side of things, not doing so well with a few players injured and not performing. But it's still early in the season. We'll see how things go. Hopefully, I can get some players back, Jaren Jackson Jr. and hopefully some Michael Porter Jr. back soon to help my team out. So we'll see how it all shakes down, and we'll let you guys know how things go in our league as well. So thanks for listening again, guys. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, and follow us on Twitter at Ball Boys NBA. And we will catch you guys next time. See you later. Bye.